Hi YouTube, my name is Camille and this is the first video that I've ever done for YouTube. I have an idea about how we can save society since our government is falling apart, and I just wanted to discuss it, even though it's kind of still a teeny tiny baby idea that's very unformed. It's just an outline at this point, and it's not really even an idea, it's kind of a concept for how we could structure people using the internet as the primary sort of organizing tool to enact real change in the world. And again, super unformed, and I'd really like to discuss this idea maybe with people who have something of an understanding of information architecture, but really anyone who is kind of looking around at the world and saying, what the heck is going on? Surely there's got to be something that I can do to contribute, and or at least like there's got to be some way that we can further the discussion from this sort of weird, like, death spiral that we've all sort of walked into, where nothing is happening and everything is broken and nobody seems to know kind of how to reframe the conversation. Maybe that's something we the people can do. So here's my idea. Again, it's just an outline. I'm going to be reading off of a Google document. There's a link to this Google document in the description to the video. If you feel like looking at it or sending me an email, my email is on there, things of that nature. I would love to discuss with whoever would like to, maybe something of how we can build a structure using the internet to enact change in the real world. And so again, the document is just cleverly titled How to Save Society Since the Government is Falling Apart. I'm also calling it Alternative Tax. You'll see why as we go through, but basically I think that this is sort of, the concept is a little bit like a voluntary tax. What if we could tax ourselves to make society better? And I know that that's a privileged thing to say, but again, this is all I have right now. It's just something I've been thinking about, and if it makes sense, it makes sense, and if it doesn't, then it doesn't. The other thing that I'm calling it is Millennials, we need to fix things because the people in charge are completely out of touch. Let's use the internet to fix everything. Clearly, it's a tool that we all use. I mean, that a lot of us use a lot for everything. And so why can't we organize at like an insanely transparent and insanely collaborative level and basically just fix everything? And here's kind of how I would personally structure that, and I would love to hear how you would structure something like this. So the first step, the first two steps involve sort of rote crowdsourcing. The first step is to identify via crowdsourcing the problems as specifically as possible, itemize the problems that we're facing and the categories of problems that we're facing as specifically as possible. So I've listed a couple of examples: climate change and the need for renewable energy, women's health and economic inequality, along with toxic masculinity, the lack of universal health care and other rights that people in the U.S. are kind of have, or rather don't. So these are just some areas, these are sort of broad categories of problems that are facing the country and, slash the world. So itemizing those further, okay, so climate change, not only do we need to reduce, carbon and other greenhouse gases out, the output of those gases, but we also need to find a way to invest in renewable energy. I didn't list this on here, but another thing is kind of like the whole alternative spec hoo-ha, like, what do we do about that? One thing that I've done personally is like buying newspaper subscriptions. Is that the most effective thing? I have no idea. But like, maybe if we talk about, the problem is alternative facts are a thing and newspapers are underfunded, what, and then that leads us to the second problem, or the second step rather, which is crowdsourcing, identifying as specifically as possible and crowdsourcing solutions to each of these itemized problems. And so those are the first two steps. First we crowdsource the problem, we get a shared vocabulary. That's very key, having a shared vocabulary to discuss the problems in, having a shared vocabulary then to discuss the solutions in, making sure we're unitizing each of these as we go along. At each of these stages also, we would want experts to be able to validate the validity of the problems and the solutions to make sure that we're being as specific and as empirical as possible. The third step would involve a team of grant writers to put together a crowdfunding campaign through using a tool, something like GoFundMe. Probably not the best tool, but something along those lines. Alongside that, a social media campaign could be run, and this campaign would seek to not alienate anybody, but to again present this is the problem in clear language, this is the solution in clear language, here's how much it will cost, will you give us $3 to do this? And that would effectively be kind of how that third step would go. At the fourth step, we would begin to actually enact solutions, always legally, but circumventing as much as needed the established structures that are meant to do these functions. One thing that I like to think about is maybe schools. If a school is not able to pay its teachers enough, or it's not able to buy supplies for its students, why can't we, the people, collectively crowdfund a solution? Flint is still without clean water. I'm sure there's a price tag on that, Why can't we, the people, fund that if the government isn't going to fund, the fix? So let's fix it, let's do it together. And then finally, the fifth step would be to have a review or audit team that could ensure full transparency during the enactment of the solution, posting all of the receipts or whatever other legal sort of fallout there is online. Any personally identifiable information obviously would not be posted online, but basically we're ensuring some sort of a financial transparency, trying to really get away from any accusation of corruption. And so I know all of this is idealistic and very, very much not thought out beyond that, but I don't know what it looks like to do something of this scale. What if, though, we could find a way, build a platform maybe, to have people connect in with their Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever accounts. So you link in via that, you connect into this social platform via those accounts. You're then able to contribute your piece through maybe some sort of upvoting, downvoting system to actually say, here's what the problem is in the problem space, go over to the solution space, here's what the solution is. We're sharing language, we're establishing a vocabulary, and then once those discussions reach a certain point, our experts are able to validate, and our teams are able to take over from there and actually start implementing these solutions in a way that's very transparent. That's all I got. I would love to talk with anyone more about this. If anyone sees this video, I don't know how YouTube disperses them. I think I'm running out of time or something. I feel like such a newbie. But this is, that's what I got. The link to the document is in the description of this video. If you want to talk to me about this, feel free to send me an email. My email's in there. All right, bye YouTube.